Today on the Ohio Fund Report, we're setting the stage for a conversation led by Mark Kvamme, co-founder, CEO, and CIO of the Ohio Fund, with Peter Coratola, founder and CEO of Ease Logistics, and Andy Jenks, co-founder of JAKIB. What does it take for AI to matter inside of a real operating business? Not as a demo or a dashboard or as a generic productivity tool, but as something that improves service and helps people spend more time doing the work that actually moves the business forward. Together, Mark, Peter, and Andy unpack one of the clearest examples we've seen of applied AI in Ohio. A service-heavy logistics business navigating a difficult freight market, partnering with an AI company to start small, solve real operational bottlenecks, and eventually build an AI layer embedded directly into how Ease Logistics works. They discuss track and trace calls, customer service, quoting, user adoption, CEO-level ownership, and why AI at its best is less about labor offsetting and more about amplification of people and their capabilities. So please enjoy this insightful conversation with Mark Kvamme, Peter Coratola, and Andy Jenks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ohio Fund Report, a show dedicated to raising the collective ambition of Ohio. Before we dive in, just a quick note. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Nothing you hear today should be taken as investment advice, a recommendation, or an offer to buy or sell any securities. Please note that the Ohio Fund and its affiliates may maintain investments in the companies discussed. Any forward-looking statements you hear today are based on current expectations and may change. Please do your own research and consult with your advisors before making any investment decisions. For more information on the Ohio Fund, please visit theohiofund.com.
What we want to do here at the Ohio Fund is we want to do case studies of each one of our companies and how they're doing fun and interesting things. Obviously, both of you guys are Ohio Fund investees. I thought maybe it would be really quick, Peter, just give you a little bit about yourself and Ease, and I'll do the same thing with Andy over there, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Peter Coratola, CEO, president of Ease Logistics. Started Ease just under 14 years ago. We're a logistics transportation warehouse company, which, as you learn through this very challenging, robust industry. And we partnered with the Ohio Fund and JAKIB last year and have had some tremendous success, both through thought leadership, obviously growing, and then adopting AI inside our walls.
Cool.
Guys, yeah. And I've known you for a long time.
Long time.
I'm Andy Jenks. I'm the J in JAKIB, and been working with AI both as an investor and now as an operator for the last 18 months. Partnered with Peter about a year-ish ago, year and a half ago. And, really focused on bringing AI transformation to service-heavy businesses. Yeah. So really trying to take the AI piece of it, make it not so scary, bring it into companies where they can leverage it, improve their business. And we're focused on growing top line. We're not focused on reducing headcount or any of those things. We're really partnering with folks to try and help them grow.
Great. Well, I thought it would be good to just start from the beginning.
Sure.
And the beginning started at the Columbus Crew, where our suite was next to your suite. The Ohio Fund next to Ease Logistics. And you and I got to chat.
Yep.
And we started talking about the business a little bit. And why don't you talk about early 24? Because it was a challenge, early 24, or 24, early 25. It was a pretty challenging time.
Yeah. So especially, our industry, heavily impacted by, global economics, from interest rates to supply chain. So in that time, if we all remember, right, supply chains were upside down, right? Bank interest rates, the cost to operate were very high, right? Coming off of disruption in the industry from COVID, right? Logistics was almost looked at as like a gold mine. So it flooded a lot of people into the industry, brought a lot of capacity in. So you brought a lot of trucks, a lot of opportunities. Once it started to normalize, right, it actually set a new kind of standing and operating from 23 to 24. What we found out in the logistics space, right, companies really can't carry these large, robust teams and overhead if they want to, be nimble and be able to operate and execute in the industry. Margins get compressed very quick, right? And then when you add delays, disruptions, international supply chain bottlenecks where microchips aren't coming over, so cars aren't being built, right? Then you stop the business that are being filled with the trucks, right? So it kind of made the entire industry really take a step back. So at Ease, you really had to look at historically we grew by capitalizing on customers by allocating people, right? We separate ourselves by service, 24/7 service, and having to give that service at Monday at noon, Saturday at midnight, right? When all those things compress and the industry really starts to show you its true colors, right? The ebbs and flows of it. The companies that are able to survive are the companies that really made changes to adapt, right? So that 23 through 24, 25, there was a lot of learning, right? Uh, ease, again, historically, when we wanted to grow, we wanted to attack a customer, there was a calculation, right? You throw account managers and client service.
Approximately for every, I don't know what the right hand is, $5 million, $10 million of shipments. How many people would you have to add on general?
Right. So about in top line, about every $2.5 million would be a person. Right. So that's, it could be around 5,000 to 6,000 shipments. So, there was a method. Now that was for account managers, but for every account manager, you would also have one support, one CS, right? Because with such a robust customer service model, you have to be able to, you got to stand behind what you say, essentially, right? Companies that don't do this industry get weeded out quick. So we had to take a look back inside of our walls, right? How do we continue to service and grow, right? While also being able to increase the output. And historically, again, the model was throw bodies at it. But when you have to operate in an industry at 12, 13% of, but the industry only allows 9 to 10 in the harshest times, right? It challenges you to figure out how you're going to do it without giving up the liberties or kind of what made you successful from a service standpoint.
And you had those market dynamics, right? With the increased capacity, which drove everything to the bottom, and then your differentiator of the service was that much harder.
Right. So then you see like a revenue per load decrease from 22 to 24 by almost like 30%. So we were doing the same amount of loads, right? But it was 20% less revenue, and then also margin was compressed, right? So how do you survive that, but then also capitalize on other markets while not defaulting on the service, right? Which you start to understand it's so easy to do, right? To give up on the things that made you successful in the harshest times, right? And it's one of those crazy things, business owners or business leaders, every once in a while, the moons line up and you get lucky, right? So as this time, right, come knocking at the door, this huge evolution of AI being more accessible and adoptable, right? Now, you're coming from somebody that we've never had a customer portal or any type of portal, right? So I believe that the customer and vendor experience is very important. So I was always very hesitant about technology. Although we've been named the most innovative logistics company, right?
But your tech team has done a really good job of setting you up, but you guys were not.
Right. And that was by design. Our tech team would always, we do portals and all this. It was I was terrified of somebody having a bad experience because the technology was not able to replicate the service, what a person can do, right?
So why don't we step back to kind of early 25? You and I got together, and we started talking about AI. If you're starting to play with it, and then of course the MIT surveys come out, say 95% of all AI projects fail, and everyone used ChatGPT to ask them, ask them to write a love letter to their wife,
right?
But other than that, it wasn't being that useful inside the enterprise. And so something that JAKIB and we kind of talked about, he said, if a piece of business is done with a 3 to 5 minute phone call, AI can do it.
Right.
And so when you and I sat down, I guess that's 18 months ago or something like that. We were in the office, I remember, and you said, hey, I'm spending $2 million a year approximately with a group down in Guadalajara, 60 people that were just asking 7 questions. And so why don't you tell about one, why you had to do it in Guadalajara, why you had to do that, and then kind of how we looked at kind of that first project in AI, because I know Jacob's big belief is if you can't get, a success in 2 to 4 weeks, you shouldn't do it. If you try to boil the ocean, it never works. So why don't we talk about that first project?
So when we brought up going back to that robust service model, one of the ways that we historically was combating that was let's outsource our track and trace, right? And our track and trace is a series of questions, but you still have to have the human element because every truck, every driver, every scenario has its own, right? And you got to do it. You have to make these calls. So when we started talking about where could we focus, I think that was for me, it was also an early indication of the kind of partnership as well, right? It wasn't, let's just get into AI, everyone's doing it. Let's get away the, being terrified of where to start, and tell us, like you said, where are you making the most calls? So we look there, right? From a standpoint of, this is our differentiator. So you want to, let's attack our selling point, right? Was a little terrifying, but when we started looking at it, and then also partnering with JAKIB, and then, I guess the clarity of what we were trying to get at was, let's answer these questions. And right now you have a Bogota team that's right around a $2 million cost, and they're doing 70% of your calls, right? So you still got 30% of being done by domestic, right? In a perfect world, this was a great avenue for us to say, it's relatively low risk. Let's not part ways with the Bogota team yet, but let's see what AI can do, right? And let's deploy it and start seeing what, the impact it can. And, through that progression, I think what we kicked off, 5 to 6 months later, around July or August, right? And then, by September, we were up to 25,000 calls a month. And by mid-September, we were already planning the decrease of Bogota, right? And that's 6 months from when we kicked off, right?
That was just that project.
Just that project. We were able to decrease almost $1.2 million in overhead, right? Yeah. The fascinating part, though, and again, this is the biggest thing for people that, one of the biggest selling points for me for the AI was our service increase, because now something that we were paying $2 million for, covering 70%, right? We're paying a fraction for it. There's, I firmly believe in the importance of human touch and the human emotion in part. In check calls and compliance, we don't want emotion,
Yeah.
So then,
are you unloaded?
Yes, right.
Or are you loaded?
Right.
Yes.
And it's
real emotion.
Right.
You laugh, you cry, you do all these things.
Right. Yeah. I always say it's like TSA. I'm not trying, respectfully, we want everyone to have a good experience, but you got to do it. You have to, So we were able to see a decrease in our costs there, but an increase. So now the AI bots were now handling 90%. Right. So then this was like kind of the first indication was we can confidently go in this direction. We don't have to give up the things that have made us successful. We can see an impact, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Andy, on your perspective, when you looked at that opportunity for JAKIB, why did you think that was a good place to start?
So, to be totally honest, we didn't know that it was a good place to start. Peter, because you had told me, you were like, hey, talk to Peter. When I first talked to Peter, I was like, wow, this is a crazy good business. But man, is it thin margin? Man, are there like real challenges to the business just from an operations perspective?
Yeah.
And when you brought up the check calls and all this, I can remember I came to this office and you gave us like, not spreadsheets, but PowerPoints of just workflows and if this, then that. And it was what people were doing.
Yeah.
And that by itself lends itself to AI really nicely. Like when you have a structured workflow that you can actually do.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge that we had was the voice agents weren't yet ready for it.
Right.
So it wasn't that AI couldn't interpret what was happening.
Yeah.
It still sounded a little robotic. It still sounded like a call center. And he's so fanatical about the experience and the service and makes logistics easy kind of a thing, that he was like, I'm not ready to turn this on because
it's too,
not because it couldn't do it.
It didn't meet his service.
It didn't meet the service levels. And so that to me was number one, when it showed up, I was like, oh, this is a perfect use case.
Yeah.
And then after we started running through it, it was like, man, we need to put this on the back burner for a hot second.
Right.
Let the technology catch up. How many calls did you and I have?
I know.
All the different providers.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were like, let's put it on the back burner and let's start attacking these other problems. Because now that we're in there, we see the process.
Yeah.
And Amy, it wasn't called Amy at the time, but Amy, which is his AI platform, when we were like, oh, well, Amy now has visibility into system X, system Y. What else can we start doing?
Right.
And that's where we spent about another 3 weeks kind of working through some things.
Yep.
And then the technology catches up.
Right.
And then as soon as the technology catches up, we get a new
So
model.
why don't we go back to that time? So one thing that Peter said very early on is Mark, real estate on the desktops of my account guys is very, very valuable.
Yeah.
And yeah, these guys, they look like stock traders. They have 4 different screens.
Yeah.
And so you said, hey, you got to integrate it into something we already use every day.
Yeah.
So it was nice and flexible with AI. You don't need a UI. So you used Microsoft Teams to ask questions. So tell us some of those early discoveries with Microsoft Teams and how you did things.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think that's when Andy got it first. Like, this guy's gonna be a pain in my. Right. I was like, we need the full functionality of AI. We need all the cool stuff, but you also need to fit it into this box, right? Because real estate, I think any business leader, tech leader hasn't, tech adoption is a challenge, right? And what you find out is are the users, are they going to use it? Is it readily available? And for us, like Mark said, I always said the real estate on the screen is we have our TMS, we have our email, we have our teams, we have all the different websites up for all our external portals and all this stuff, our capacity suite, all this stuff, right? So you got to break into one of these if you want someone. So what we did, or what JAKIB did, was be able for us to access, our AI bot, so to speak, through Teams. Yeah. What we didn't realize we were doing at the time was we were building this essentially like environment for us to now build and test AI where our teams would be able to trigger the AI to do tasks, build confidence without fully having to commit to automation.
Right.
Which was, again, you want to trust it, but for anything, when we drive service compliance, follow the process, all these things, there's an intimidation factor of like, is it going to actually do what we say?
Right.
So while the technology was catching up, then we paired it with the teams so we could actually trigger these calls, come back and evaluate them. So we turned everybody on the ops for account managers, scheduling, also into, I guess, UI testers as well.
Yeah.
And we were able to get all this great feedback in live time saying, well, this was wrong, this was right. Yeah. So we were perfecting it, not day over day, literally call over call over call.
So that's what was training the model.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Now you have this ability to take an off the shelf model. And at the time, I forget which one it was. It may have been like Haiku or something like that, or Sonnet, an earlier version. And the team, by just using it and trying to get value from it, was actually making it much, much better.
Right.
Because we had that, in-sourced team doing the work.
So it's kind of like in the past software, we need this big old heavy lift, it's not like building a house. You have to, get all the architectural drawings and hire all the contractors, and you build a house and you move in. Whereas this was very much incremental. Every week you were changing, and sometimes it was very frustrating weeks. Sometimes it was very happy weeks. And then, so as you guys looked at that, I'm assuming you had the same experience inside of Ease. Each one, your account manager, some guys going, this is amazing. Other guys saying, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, both, right? And transparently, user adoption, even for how far we've come, right? Now up to 300,000 AI executing, which user adoption and building that trust still, right? And we've come a long way. But again, what we were viciously attacking at that point were our revenue generators, our account managers, right? Where are they bottlenecking?
Yeah.
Right. And how can we slowly build that trust? And then that's what we saw, right? And then once we started adding a little more features, like Andy said, now it can read our data. Now it can maybe write. We saw this like almost overnight. I remember sitting on the ops floor Wednesday, right? Like in September, when we started adding more LM.
September was October. They were at collection point.
Yeah. And asking everybody on the floor, like, who uses AI on a daily basis, and maybe like 20% of the floor, right? We turned it all on, had some, basic functions, right? Like legitimately the next day, the conversations inside the team chats were just exponentially different. It wasn't, hey, this load's available. It was, hey, if I'm of lead time on this route by 48 hours is increasing, we're seeing a better booking rate by, 3% or whatever. I mean, it changed overnight. You can start to see the excitement, right? I think excitement builds both through, are you taking workload off me that's not helping me get better, but are you also giving me insights to help me smarter?
Yeah, this was like a real interesting insight too early, was when we were looking for these other projects to work on because we knew some of these language models or the voice models were going to start stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
We could see that coming. So we were like, maybe if we just give it one more rev of that, as we were waiting, we would just go to people, Peter would go to people and he'd say, this person, their day, every day when they show up starts with this report, or before they leave, they have to do this, or there's a handoff between shift A and shift B. And this is what goes into that handoff. We just started systematically attacking those things, not necessarily from a technology perspective of we got to go build all these features. It was literally, how do you build a prompt? How do you build an interface where somebody says, well, when I show up, I just either hit a button and it does everything for me in my Teams, in my email, in wherever I'm at, and I can copy, paste, send. And all of a sudden my day went from my first 15, 20 minutes sucking because I have to go pull all this stuff to like, I hit a button, I'm done, and now I'm on with my day.
Right.
That's the insight that Ease figured out early, which is how do we systematically go from person to person, basically, you know, function to function, and try and make their day better.
Yeah. I mean, one thing you were telling me before, I think that's perfect. I mean, you were telling me before that it took, I thought you said, if I remember correctly, 72 clicks on average to get a load done. Yeah. And why don't we talk about a little bit about the numbers now? I mean, what you saw, and we're talking about the adoption curve, but maybe a good idea is saying, okay, what are we doing now?
Yeah. So I want to make sure I get these right, because actually I was looking at them and they're so astounding. So, right. I mean,
they're kind of unbelievable.
They
really are.
Right. So we're talking about like those transactions now for the humans that are clicks that are doing it, we're down to 15 to 20. We're talking about the compliance steps that used to take 10 minutes. If everything went perfect, now it's down to less than 2 minutes. Right. When we look at just those operational tasks, so like in this last quarter, on average, it's like 1,600 hours saved just on operational tasks, right? On transactional, like execution quoting, we're talking like 5,000. So last month, Amy helped us quote 62,000 opportunities, right? So we're visually attacking the operational stuff where, again, it's very important. It's our service model. We can't operate without it, right? But now we're moving into revenue generating, right? So we're seeing 60,000 quotes quoted a month. We're seeing 7,000 hours saved in these small transactional quotes, right? We're being able to capture
every hour saved saves you money,
right? And and in our space, right, when you deal with robust technologies and you have opportunities come through every way, emails, AP, EDI, and all this stuff, right? How you differentiate yourself in today's market is how do you increase the output per person without giving up your service, right? So we created the acronym SPEED, shipment per ease employee daily, and we've been able to now track. And the only way for us to increase it across the organization is tech adoption through AI, right? And going all the way back to your first question, how we started, I think unbeknownst to me, you all are longer and stronger in the tech game. I think something we did great was we were giving them, a lot of companies will go out there and give AI and it'll just deliver insights. I think we paired insights with execution really early on.
That's a very good point.
And I think that built confidence to help us get to this point, because AI is great at giving insights. But if the moment you start giving the actual execution part and get it into people's hands, I think that was a huge game changer for us in terms of.
And that's one of the hardest things to do is, because the insights sometimes are actually not that insightful.
Right.
Because Peter, our interface, we have multiple models running underneath of all of Ease's stuff. Yeah. They challenge each other. Like we do all the mixture of expert. We do all the things. And Peter would be like, that's just wrong.
Right.
And it's not because it's wrong. It's technically probably right. It's wrong for Peter's business.
Right. Yeah.
So for his business, it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking about it kind of early on, because you built this amazing company. Everything kind of comes through your experience in logistics business. What we've done with the AI and what Jacob's done is basically downloaded your brain into it. So instead of having, you said this comment to me, instead of having, when you have a new trainee, you'd have to spend 6 months getting them up to speed. Right. Now that new trainee can come in and be up to speed instantly.
Right. I mean, the run right now for new hires being able to make an impact, right, is exponentially lower. We're not only were we able to track their performance and seeing what they're using Amy for, right? They're able to know our processes. Amy also becomes like this AI assistant, right? Somewhere along the other, account manager AI assistant turned into Amy. Not really sure how we got there. Yeah. But now it's, it's like you have the experience of somebody with a decade or 20 years essentially sitting right by these account managers, right? This is what you should quote. This is, this is our service process. Hey, these loads are running late, right? And that really starts to position you again, right? Especially going back to in our industry where everybody we bring in has to make an impact. So the quicker they can make an impact, the better off we are. And we can now start to deliver those cost savings. I mean, to the bottom line's a big one, but to our customers, and then, conquer, go execute, capitalize on more opportunities without having to throw the same amount of bodies before. Again, not looking to take people out of work. We're really elevating the work and elevating the output.
Yeah,
And people are doing,
they're doing real work. They're not
doing
just
work,
clicking
yeah.
spreadsheets and all.
Right.
Totally.
They're now focused on the customer versus focused on their email.
Right.
You're hiring somebody to do the job that they're hired to do.
Right.
Not all this other stuff.
Right. And that's that was one somewhere along the lines. It's, you think of it that way. I started looking, what if your account managers or your salespeople, 90% of their time was focused on those first 2 bullet points, right? Talk to your customers, add loads or add revenue, right? But, 2 through 10 is make sure your loads are tracked, make sure your service, make sure you're compliant, right? Which a lot of times those would eat up a lion's share of the time just because there's only so many minutes a day and you got to get a driver on the phone and you got to do these things. And it takes seconds, it takes minutes. When you get those, your A players, any player, to be able to just do 1 or 2 things, right? What if 90% of your time was always focusing on your customer? What if 90% of when we get to 100%, right? Now your output per individual can start to go up. So again, we can capitalize market share. We can be more nimble how we operate. We can deal with the ebbs and flows of the industry while securing more market share. So it's been quite the ride of seeing that all play out.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to watch, because everybody thinks about AI. If you take that word out of it and you just say, we're matching kind of the digital world to the physical world,
right?
And we're taking all the things that you have to do in the physical world while automating a lot of it.
Right.
Some of it is proper AI, like Magic Box.
Yeah.
Some of it is just like automation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that AI has been the tip of the spear or the wedge into these industries, into these companies like Ease. Like if it was just another, hey, I've got a new SaaS product that competes with Salesforce, you'd probably be like, man, you know what? I'm good.
Right.
But AI opened the door where you're like, well, there's this big wave coming. I got to at least figure that out. We started with the Guadalajara project,
right?
Or, and it turned into this, well, I also need to do this and do this and do this. And some of that is proper, magic-y things. And some of that is just getting the automation back to where it is, because the infrastructure was set. So the tech team had done their job. They built, you got your data warehouse and all those normal things. And it's not just let me just sell you a SaaS product.
Right.
It's let's match the digital world to the physical world. What do you do in the physical world that we can map to the digital world? And how do we put that together and make you more efficient? That was the coolest thing for me. This project has been one of the most fun. I mean, it's good. It's getting a text from Peter at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it's funny.
It's
no, let's just flip it around. It's kind of, we were together with Zach yesterday over at JAKIB offices. And I asked Zach, why are you able to attract such world-class engineers? Because, they can go to Meta, they can go to Google, they can go to all these different places. He said, actually used these as an example. He says, we got these amazing engineers and they can in real time see how their code works. So they can post it up at 2:00 and you guys are using it at 6 a.m. And that's super cool. And so for the engineers to get instant feedback, I think that's the one thing is we talked about. It's an iterative process. The minute you try to boil the ocean, it's never going to work.
Right.
And so I think I would say my next question is for Andy. As you kind of, we've talked about a lot of things Peter's learned in this whole process. Obviously, you had a young company, you were building it. What have you've been a technologist forever. What did you learn in this process?
The biggest learning is that you can't take the models at face value.
Yeah.
I would say I've talked to so many people. I mean, you and I have talked to so many people, and when I was investing, there's a lot of truth to the hype. So I think the hype is real. I think the truth is real. But you can't just say, I'm going to buy, X model off the shelf, or I'm going to go to Hugging Face and I'm going to download the latest model that does, vision really well, or latest Kimmy does this. You really have to have a partner. Like, you really have to have a real project to be working on, because each one of those models, like, nobody cares about benchmarks.
No.
Like, Peter doesn't care that like Opus 4.7 is better at a math benchmark than Codex 5.4. Like, he doesn't care about that.
You don't think about that, people?
No. So it's like, what have I learned? I learned that like it's 101 of normal software, which is like, find a real problem that a customer has and go solve the problem. The difference is that now we have the tools. So like, I would say that the biggest factor for the JAKIB side of the house is we can do way more with less people, and they are now superhuman. Like, it's not just they're a little better. They're like supercharged, and they can do things that would take, 2 months previously. A lot of the plumbing work, DevOps stuff. I mean, all this, like, that you would actually, like, there are whole companies built to go solve these problems. And now one engineer can do an entire CIC, like an entire pipeline of code gen and delivery in like an hour, which used to take way longer. And so, like,
I got to tell you, I was watching this podcast last night with Ed Sheeran and Benny Blanco. And in the end of the podcast, they decide to go make a song. Okay. And I was Benny Blanco was JAKIB. Okay. Ed Sheeran is Ease. So you're creating the music. You're saying, I don't want to do this. And then he's integrating and moving it around. And, let's try this. Let's try. Let's use this tool. Let's use that tool. And they're doing it like in real time. And that's the things I saw.
This is the thing that's insane. Is like, Peter, again, love Peter, not a technologist, okay? But knows.
That's true.
Knows how to move freight. Like, he'll call me and be like, I'm just moving freight. Like, knows how to move freight, right? So like, that's what he knows how to do. So our team, Peter is effectively the product manager for Amy.
Right.
Peter calls our team all the time. It's like, hey, I'd like to see this. I'd like to see that. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. So because of AI on our side, at least, which directly impacts Peter, we've now built Peter his own kind of almost like Claude Cowork-esque type harness inside of Amy, where he can go create features on his own. It flows back into our entire CI/CD pipeline. It does, like, before something gets pushed, like, we have a human review it, but Peter's now committing code changes that he doesn't know he's committing. That we are reviewing.
That's what I thought.
That we are reviewing, and it's getting pushed out into the Amy product like that. Now, granted, we're not going to give that to everybody, but the point is, like, that was
impossible.
Yes.
You wouldn't even attempt it.
No.
And now we're like, I don't know, Peter seems to know what he's doing, so like, let's just give him the tools to do it.
Exactly.
And he's doing it.
Exactly.
That was a pretty creative way to caged Ant. Yeah, I mean,
getting all these texts from Peter at all times of the day. It's like, you know what, just let him do it.
Once you get through that, again, like, once you see that this technology can reflect your business how you want it, right? And like you said, when we were doing the check calls on that, we didn't like it. You don't have to submit a ticket and wait for someone to go code it. And if we didn't like how that call went, we could say, hey, let's make it say, and boom, right? So then you start seeing that, right? Then you start seeing the impact, and that was where, they put me in this good box, where it was like, we can't, we got to go back to how we started this. Let's solve problems, because once you start really seeing, once AI knows your business, or once you find a partner that knows your business and is not trying to just sell you general AI and they know your business, then that's like when it really becomes fun, and you see why there's this group of people that are so excited about it. It's going to change, and either you accept the reality, right? Or the company that's going to challenge you the most are the people that did accept it, right? Because you start seeing, I can solve this, I can solve that, I can solve this.
It's really funny because the questions become like, can I do? It's not nothing new per se. It's more like, I can now actually do it.
Right.
I can point it, I can do it.
Right.
And before, it would take an army of engineers, and back to your point, like on the JAKIB team, we have, I think, we counted yesterday, it's like
15.
It's like 7 former founder / CTOs are now all wanting to be part of JAKIB because we're working on really hard problems like this. And when you give a really smart engineer a really hard problem, like, and again, the craziest of all of them is let's give the CEO the ability to write code into his own platform.
Works. Hey. Yeah.
Like, that's a challenge. A lot of engineers may be like, that's a really bad idea. But our engineers were like, no, that's actually a great idea. Because he knows his business better than we do. We didn't know anything about logistics when we showed up. Now we know a little bit more, but like,
no, you know his business.
You know your business.
I maybe moving forward here. So, I mean, AI's got a lot of, obviously it's the hype factor. I actually think it's underhyped in my opinion, but, you know, you hear a lot of stuff about people, you know, using AI to cut workforces and cut this and cut that. You're kind of doing the exact reverse. You're now, you know, blossoming and able to do more. So tell a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So we look at it as like a multiplier, right? A multiplier for the individual, right? Can they adopt it? Can they use it? Right? Can we viciously attack some of those redundant processes? Right. Remember, we live in a very robust industry, right? Taking those clicks out a day, just get somebody back more time. That's just the operational transaction stuff, right? We start layering the AI insights, the AI ability, better engage with customers, carriers, right? We're talking about increasing, once was it 12, 13 loads per person, right? To 30, 35 loads per person, right? Like, to put in perspective for us, that takes a company where our size, right? With the same amount of people, right? We can almost double our revenue, right? Double our volume count without giving up service, right? We can, again, run leaner from a standpoint of our operating margin can operate at 7, 8, right? You can pass that on, but all the volume, all that opportunity now also passes to the individual so they can make more, they can do more, right? So, you know, it bothers me as well when AI almost becomes synonymous as a job taker, right? To me, it's 1000% a job, you know, extrapolator in a way, right?
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's like the concept that a lot of people are saying, and it's true, is like this Jevons paradox. Like, the more technology you give people, the more access you give people, the more you're going to get.
Right.
And so, like, he's getting a lot more, which is kind of crazy.
And it's challenging them more from a standpoint of, like, they don't have to do, again, we keep going back to those operational tasks. And I promise you, the numbers are a lot more than operational tasks, right? Amy contributed to $8 million in additional revenue that 100% was AI in this last quarter, right? 300,000 AI transactions. So it's more than that. But it's also making some of those roles more exciting, right? Like how they talk to their customers.
You're not doing the drudgery work. You're able to do the work that's really exciting.
Right. So you get to go in front of customers or carriers, and rather than talk about maybe just standard service KPIs, we're talking about like very intricate things going on in their supply chain, dwell times, new routing, right? We're able to put these things.
You just mentioned this. I mean, you had a big meeting this morning,
right?
But talk about how now your customers are using it,
right,
inside of Amy, delivering things they could never get before, actually making it better for your business as well.
So that's something, again, over the last 3 months we pushed out. Remember, this is a timeline of, you know,
like 9 months,
right? So now we're able to extend the AI functionality, the AI impact to our customers, right? Do our customers have to use Amy to work better with us? No. Does it make it easier? Absolutely. Do we get more efficient? Do they get more efficiency? So we've been able to pass, you know, what we've built in Amy and AI, and now give it right to our customer hands. So our customers now, you know, some Fortune 10, some, you know, mid market, where, you know, either they're so big that it's hard to get any AI initiative going, or they're a mid market where, you know, in those, you know, manufacturing, industrial, they're not investing in AI right now. So we're able to also pass this on to our customers where they're able to now see the impact of AI, right? Work with us easier, work with us better, right? And give us great feedback on what they're seeing. You know, in a perfect world, there's a whole subset of customers that, right, can just use Amy to help manage their supply chain, right? And it triggers our control tower, right, to execute, but they have the consistent at their fingertips all the time, essentially AI account manager that allows them to manage their transportation. Because in our industry, not all customers want to have an account manager, right? And for us, specific, that is a part of the industry we've never been able to capture because we've always been, I would say I've always been OCD. I've always been, the human has to respond in 2 minutes. Human has to pick up the phone, right? There's a subset of customers now that we're able to tap into, and we're able to deliver this robust service model to everybody, and knowing they're going to have a good experience because it's been built from the ground up, and it knows how we operate, and when we adjust things, it adjusts as well.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is like Peter brought me into a couple meetings with some of your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are very, very large.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, we've got a big consultancy like McKinsey in here, and they've given us, the 14-month roadmap, and the PowerPoint presentation probably cost $1 million.
Right. Right.
And in the meantime, before that meeting specifically is probably on a Sunday, Peter is like, hey, X customer is going to be in here on Tuesday. Can we have an AI portal for him so that way they can just interact with their loads?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? It was done.
It was done.
And they were blown. They were like, this would take him forever.
Right.
We've got consultants and dev shops and all of these people and, all the big logos telling us that this was going to take us like 6 to 9 months to just even get a prototype going.
Right. Exactly.
And like, we had it done in 2 days. And that's not because we're awesome. It's because Peter knows exactly what the customer needs.
Yeah.
And he's just able to communicate that back to a team that knows how to leverage these tools in a way that can get him that done in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, this is why it's exciting to be building tech and being in business. Like, I'd say that like, if you're a business like Peter's and you got heavy service, like it's the most exciting time. It's not terrifying. A lot of people find it terrifying. If you're taking the approach that Peter is, it's the most exciting time to be building and growing your.
Well, actually, let's go on that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Peter, take yourself out of ease and you're at the Columbus Crew game and XYZ guy comes up and says, I have $100 million company. How do they get started? I mean, what's the mindset they need to have to get started?
So one thing just to go on that point was, I don't have a robust technology experience, right? So just don't let that scare anybody when he says Peter can now talk to the engineer, right? My depth of technology is, if something was broke, I knew how to unplug it and plug it back in. So like, I don't know how. Yeah, right. So I want everybody to hear on that point, right? Like,
right there.
I don't know the right. No, you know what I mean. But I do know my business. I knew how to articulate what's important. And that's right. So that was a big thing. And I think it's important for people to understand, like, when we're talking about this, I don't know code. I don't know the difference between SQL or API. I don't even know there's the same things, what AI and what a great partnership allowed me to do is just communicate what's critically important.
Yep.
Right. Critically important and know the business. Right. And then where can we go solve problems? Right. So if somebody's looking to get an AI, right, finding a business partner that comes in and their first 10 questions are asking about your business, I think is super important, right? What AI has done also, people are really good at giving presentations this day.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make it hard for the AI companies, but when you're a business owner, you want to make sure that you're spending your time and partnering with people that are going to make an impact, right? So knowing the company that's going to ask questions about what's important to you, how do you operate, what are your systems, right? And getting that out, lay of the land, right? And then all the way back to our first point, right? What is that transaction that is being done every day that's important, right? Is it responding to one email? Don't boil the ocean, start small, right? In 9 months, we started with outbound 7 questions, and now we have fully integrated interactive AI portals. We're autonomous, we're tracking all of our opportunities. We're able to adjust pricing in lifetime. We're paying, right? So it happens, right? Now, I will say we got there through some, I would say, great coaching. I'm saying tough coaching, right? Of we will get there, right? But let's remember the time frame we're talking about. Right.
So he just said, hey, what you have to the mindset of the CEO and so on. You just recently said you went into company, did their business analysis, and it wasn't right for AI.
What was it?
Yeah. So what are you analyzing from what's
So
right for
the first thing is it's kind of like what you do in venture. It's you got to assess the founder
right
and the owner of the business in this case. But more importantly, it's like when you go in and you talk to somebody and they're like, I'd love to, fire 5 people. It's like, okay, well, that's not what we're here to do. Like, what we're here to do is we're here to help you take market share.
Right.
So like the first thing is like, what's the mentality of the business?
Yeah.
Number 2 is like, are you in a big enough market? Like, again, coming back to Venture 101, it's like, are you in a big enough market where if you change, like if you make a 5% impact to the business, like you're adding millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to your bottom line. Like that answer is yes. Continue. And then if you've got a founder, CEO, owner who is, I would say, open to, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it is uncomfortable. It's,
That is.
One thing
actually, you brought something. I was with a very large financial institution CPO the other day, and I said, "Oh, what are you guys doing in AI?" He goes, "Oh, we're doing a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit." I said, "How involved are you on?" "Oh, we got the guy to." I said, "Wrong.
All right.
If you're not waking up every morning saying, 'Hey, am I going to address my business from an AI perspective?' Then you're not going to go anywhere because it's got to come from the top.
It's got to come from the top.
Right.
And like you and I had this conversation yesterday when we were talking about like right now, we have been talking to CEOs, like the JAKIB model is like, we just kind of let our work do the talking, so to speak. But in order to make that truth happen, we got to be at the right level inside of an organization. But I actually think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that is the answer, which is like, you have to be able to find your way into a conversation with somebody where you can quickly evaluate, like, is this a person who hates change? Is this a person who's like holding on for dear life?
Right.
Or they're looking to sell and get out and get to the boat in Florida or whatever. But I do think that finding the right partner, like this is a part, he's frustrated with me the same amount of time we get frustrated with each other.
He said it.
But it's true, but it's like, but we have this trust and we've been able to prove it. And I think that proof is really where it matters. And so like, if you're waking up and you don't yet have if you've had an AI initiative inside of your like labs or inside of your like test group or whatever, and it's not made you have this aha moment, you've either got the wrong vendor, you've got the wrong person running it, or you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And so, because everybody who adopts this type of mindset, like I always say that 95% of all AI projects fail paper. And again, it's probably overstated, but let's just say hypothetically it's 50.
Right.
Like we have a 100% success rate, like 100%. Yep. Every person that you work with is 100% successful and can give a testimony similar to what Peter's given. Not because we've discovered fire. Right. Like we're just using the tools the right way with the right customer, and we found the customers with the right mentality. And like, if you're not that big, financial institution CEO, if they're not waking up saying that like, I got to get this to market ASAP, well, then something's broken in their process. Yeah. It's not that the tools aren't there, the teams aren't there, the will isn't there, something's broken.
Yeah. We'll be wrapping up here. So, Andy, you're a Silicon Valley guy. We talk about this often. We spend a lot of time together in Silicon Valley. Why do you think Ohio-based companies are better positioned to implement a lot of this stuff than what's going on in the Valley?
Well, it's Peter. I mean,
it's all
it's all Peter.
I know.
It's all comes down to it's Peter and the other couple, like Chad. Like there's plenty of folks here. But when you and I first talked about this, and I said to you, I was like, man, it's really hard to find what to invest in next. Right. And we had this whole conversation. I think we were at dinner, and it was just kind of like, if you had a $100 billion fund, well, if you're Masa and you're like, I can put a $20 billion bet on OpenAI or a $100 billion bet on Anthropic, great, that's a model that can work. If you're going to raise a fund or if you're going to invest in companies, start looking at the ones that are actually implementing AI. Well, who is implementing AI? The target audience for every single model company that's getting built, sure, today it's devs, and I wholeheartedly believe that, but the devs customer is Peter.
Right.
It's not more devs. It's Peter. And it's people who have service heavy businesses that are at, north of, call it $100 to $200 million in revenue, who can actually make the investment, who want to change and transform their business in a way that's like using applied AI, which is what we say we do. We are applied AI. That's why it works in Ohio, because if you shake a stick, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of these companies, and there's no lack of people who it's the kind of Midwest spirit of like, who are grinders and they want to work and they want their business to be successful. And so it is kind of an interesting way to say that like Silicon Valley can build it,
Right.
and you guys can take advantage of it.
Sure.
And so I think that's why like I'm so bullish on what you're doing, quite frankly, is like, I think that this economy is going to reap the rewards of a lot of the efficiencies that somebody like people, like we were just talking, like he could be a multi-billion-dollar company based right here in Hemswire, right? And so it's like, and it's taking advantage of this stuff.
Okay, last question. And this is where you're going to get in trouble. Give me a prediction in your business or technologically at JAKIB that is pretty extraordinary in the next 2 years, but you wouldn't be surprised that it happens. So something that's just out there, but there is a greater than 50% chance that happened.
Did you want an impression?
Yeah, I'll let you. Let me.
Okay, I'll give a tech prediction, and then I'll give an ease prediction. I wouldn't be surprised if we had data centers in space.
Yeah.
2 years.
In 2 years, I agree with
Which sounds insane. And then you get into the Dyson sphere and all this craziness, But if we really are going to take advantage of everything that we've got, we do have to have more power. Like people are selling AI by the gigawatt. Right. So, and I think that there's an efficiency curve that you have to ride.
Right.
And with Elon bringing the cost of launches way down, I think that efficiency curve can go straight to space. Now, there's a lot of problems with that, but whatever. I think that's where. Two, I think the ease business, when I first met Peter, it was like an October, November timeframe, and you were like, hey, met this guy, it's a pure game, he's got this business, it's a great business, but it's in a really tough market. And you and I have looked at the 3PL market previously from a venture nose.
Exactly.
And we've said no.
Yeah.
Tough business.
Transparent, hurt. Yeah.
When I first showed up, I told you, I was like, pass.
Yeah. Thank you
but
for the
I
honesty.
And, your business was going through some inflection points. So from that point in time, so 2 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised. It would not, put it this way, it would not be surprising. It would not surprise me if Ease is doing, they're doing north of a 10% kind of gross margin business that is wildly profitable and is able to go take the market.
It's a $1.5 trillion market.
That's what I'm saying.
It could be a multi-billion-dollar company.
That's what I'm saying. And be able to take.
Okay, I'm putting that in the board plan right now.
Go.
So to be able to, basically, I wouldn't be surprised if you're able to drop your gross margin to a point where you're making money and nobody else is. And then you're able to go put a little bit of a stranglehold on the market. I wouldn't have said that when I first met you. I'd have been like, hold on for dear life. And now it's like, you're in the driver's. So I would say $100 million of gross profit in the next 12 months.
All right.
Let's do your.
All right. Let's see. Personally, I think by 2 years, I don't see myself ever doing a PowerPoint again because AI will always be doing them for me. Right.
Nice.
I think in the next 2 years, inside of our industry and industries like ours, I think that you're going to see the reemergence of the importance of human or relationships, actually holding relationships with customers. I think we've gotten away from it a little bit. It's everything being about service and compliance. Where in the next years, I think AI is going to make everybody everybody deliver a high level of service, everybody be compliant, everybody able to solve problems. So it's going to reemerge the importance of the human touch and the people that respect and appreciate and put time into building relationships and knowing how to get in front of people. I think you're going to see the kind of reemergence of that happen, right? Inside of our walls, I'm pretty bullish on seeing us get to that 50 load per person output without dropping a lick of service, right? And from that standpoint, we were talking about 35, right? That puts us at that $1 billion mark with seemingly, right, maybe 10% or 20% of the growth of human capital here, right? Which in our industry would be a complete outlier in terms of our revenue per load, how lean we run, right? And I think because of that, we'll be able to capture more market share because we will be able to truly pass those cost savings on to the customer. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what else I see. I think people that are capitalizing on this will have to make that conscious decision to pass this on to the companies that you're servicing, right? And the people that do that smart and do that quick and accept the reality of AI, I think will be those companies like Ease in 2 years that are leading the industry.
That's fantastic. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys from the investors of the in the Ohio Fund. You guys have increased their value quite a bit. We thank you for what you're doing at Ease and what you're doing at JAKIB, and really look forward to doing a lot more in the future. So thank you for the time today, and look forward to the next year ahead.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ohio Fund Report. If you enjoyed this podcast, we'd love for you to leave a review on your favorite platform and subscribe to stay updated on all future episodes. You can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or directly on our website at theohiofund.com. The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, an offer to sell, or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not necessarily represent those of the Ohio Fund. A guest's participation in this podcast does not imply an endorsement or an investment recommendation by the Ohio Fund. This podcast may include conversations with leadership of a company in which the Ohio Fund or its affiliated funds have an investment, and as such, financial interest in the success of this company, and there may be a conflict of interest in presenting information about the company and its performance. Any forward-looking statements or projections discussed during this episode are based on current expectations, assumptions, and estimates. Actual outcomes may differ materially due to a variety of risks, uncertainties, and other factors. Listeners should consult their own legal, tax, and financial advisors before making any investment decisions. For more information about the Ohio Fund, including our Form ADV, other regulatory filings, and additional conversations, please visit theohiofund.com.